listening builds empathy and understanding, not the other way around. We're expecting people to go into the situation being that way rather than this. If they learn how to listen, it'll be the result. Hi, everyone. This is Christine Miles, your host of Shine a Light. I'm here with my guest today, Nolan Hout, who I will introduce formally in just a moment. Welcome, Nolan.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, excited to have you. This is fun for me. Having been in the learning and development space for a while, I love to pick your brain and help the listeners really learn a little bit more from a business perspective to an individual contributor perspective, even parents as well. So let me tell you a little bit about Nolan, Senior Vice President of Growth at InfoPro Learning. You've spent over a decade helping global organizations unlock the potential of their people through smarter learning and development, and always looking at ways that can actually deliver ROI, not just nice to haves, real results. He's also the host of the popular podcast, The Talent Equation, newly titled.
Thank
I
you.
love it. And where you dig into real world talent development stories and strategies with executives on the front line. So welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, thank you so much. And you missed the most important part about me, and it is I am an avid fly fisherman. I say that so that if you want to bribe me, if you ever are like, hey, well, how can I get in touch with Nolan? If you just somehow mention fly fishing and whatever your product is in the same sentence, I'm instantly going to be listening. So.
Well, I love how the metaphor is there. In order to catch you, they have to talk about what you want to catch.
Yeah.
Fly fishing that's interesting, no, I'm not a fisherman. Let me just be clear. But it's, from what I understand, it is very creative.
Yeah.
And it's very, very nuanced.
Yeah. Those are two things that it absolutely is. And and it takes a lot of patience.
Yeah.
I'm the opposite of somebody who should like fly fishing. Fly fishing is it's not so much about the catching of the fish. It's the surrounding elements. And I hate that. Oh my God, I hate that. When I go on a hike, my wife's like, what are you racing towards? Like, I want to finish. And she's like, why? When I read a book, I don't care what it's about. I'm just racing to finish it. She's like, how lame are you? I'm like, I don't know, but that's who I am. So.
She knows you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you're probably pretty goal driven, is what I'm
gathering. Exactly.
So what's the appeal then? Like, what's the appeal of this different experience, and what does that do for you?
It's really hard for me to get to that goal. I was self-taught. I didn't know anybody else who did it, and I was really good at bait fishing and caught a ton of fish. And so it became too easy. So I am goal driven, but if that goal is too simple, I get bored super quick.
Okay,
so the harder the goal, the more I'm going to engage until I can get there.
That's interesting. I also like to be frustrated. I think I had a boyfriend tell me once, he goes, I think you just needed somebody new to frustrate you around communication. I thought that was probably pretty brilliant. Like, I need a problem to solve. So you like the challenge. Like the challenge. Okay. Very cool. And you're in Indiana, you said, right?
Idaho. The other state that nobody cares about. Yeah. The potato one, not the corn one, which is Iowa, but yeah.
You're in a pretty rural area. Is that part of what inspired you?
I think so. I don't know. I think there is something about, I was in sports my whole life. And I'm in a desk all day.
Yeah.
And so, but my wife is a lover of nature and things like that. So I feel like even though my wife doesn't fish, I feel like I'm doing something that she can respect with my free time. When I go golfing, I think she's just like, this is so like, could you be more stereotypical, like white guy out there on the golf course in a polo chugging beers with your buds? I'm like, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry.
As a fellow golfer, I'm not much of a beer drinker, but as a fellow golfer, I understand how ridiculous it looks to the average individual. Why are you chasing that stupid ball? But talk about something that's really complicated. So, yeah. So, well, let's get to know you a little bit. I like to go back to the beginning. So, we talked a little bit before we got started that you moved quite a lot of times as a kid. But where did your beginning start? Where did you grow up? And tell us a little bit about your background.
My memories are Texas, in Houston, Texas. And as everything things change over time, right? And your perspective changes over time. But when I was there, absolutely loved it. I feel like one of the biggest things I learned in tech, two things that stand out to me. One is the importance of public education,
Hmm.
because I was given a phenomenal education, not just a public school, not a private school or anything like that, but given just an amazing education in Texas. So much so that when I moved to Colorado, sorry, and again,
At what age? At what
things have
age?
changed. 9.
9. Okay.
So
All
I'm sure
right.
things have changed, but I didn't learn anything new for 2 years.
Huh.
I was teaching the other student. That's what the teachers just said. They said, you go around and teach the other students, because at this point we can't really, there's nothing for us to give
And
you that you
and so your
do.
career began.
Yeah. Yeah. So that instilled me a really, like, I instantly got the importance of education,
Yeah.
and trying to make it, I know that it's somehow political, I guess, to say like state rights versus whatever, but like there is, as a country, like I like the idea of being able to, if a family needs to move from one state to the next, I would like to think that their level of education should
Yeah.
be somewhere. Anyways, so that was one thing.
It's
And then I
interesting. I'm
all,
just slowing you down here for a second
yeah,
because I'm picturing your 9-year-old self having some awareness of this. I mean, I realize we reflect and we
yeah.
figure things out, but that you remember your teacher saying you just go help the other students, that's pretty significant. That's young. That's young.
Yes, and that I think that is also where I developed a passion for being a leader.
Yeah.
I love that role. I absolutely loved it. I loved helping and I loved helping the people that were the most, like, the lost, the people that were just completely lost. I just loved it.
Huh. Well, what about it did you love? Do you remember
Um,
how it made you
I
feel?
am absolutely sure there is a part of it that's narcissist. I'm sure there's some part about it that is like,
Well, not all
look at
narcissism's bad.
look at me. I'm like this smart
Yeah.
person, but there is something about my
It's very
style.
honest of you, by the way.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
my style for everything. I try to be. I hope that my style is to just motivate you to do whatever is the best in
Mhm.
you.
Yeah.
And I love finding what motivates those people. I coach both of my boys in all their sports. And I realize the kind of coach I want to be is somebody who only provides positive
Yeah.
experiences for all of these kids. I mean, I'm not getting paid for it. The kids aren't getting scholarships. It's not that big of a deal. So I realize that all I want to do is make them feel good about themselves and let whatever's inside of them take hold. And I
Yeah.
think in what I have found in coaching, and then also, when I was 9, I'm reflecting, it's the people, those people need it the most, actually. The people
Yeah.
who are the furthest away from below the average
Yeah.
probably tend to get the less positive reinforcement and the less feedback for whatever reason. So,
Well,
and
there's
I think
also
I like
sometimes
that.
the most opportunity for growth because, you
That's
know,
another thing. Yeah,
yeah,
for
so
sure.
yeah. Well, first of all, when you 2 things, just as an aside. I don't know if you know this, but there's research that the number one characteristic of knowing if someone's narcissist is they'll admit they are. Like,
Oh, okay.
they'll self-report. So I found that amusing. But secondly, you blew it when you followed on with, "I like to make others feel good and be positive." And so you gave me very bipolar, inconsistent
Yeah.
answers there. But anyway, no, it's so you liked the aspect that it felt good the way you were helping people. That was the part of you that, but remembering that. So it's really not far off from what you're doing on a daily basis. Is that not correct?
Yeah, I mean, so my role here at InfoPro is a bit of a unique one. But before I do that, I do want to take us back to one other thing, because I do think it's really important and
Okay.
it relates to a lot of this. The other thing I learned in Texas at a very young age was racism.
Mm,
And I'll never forget, at this point I was even younger, 6 years old, 7 years old, and there was a party, and there was this group of black guys playing basketball. And this kid, my younger brother's friend, so he was 4, maybe
huh.
5, and he's like, "Oh, look at those guys, they're so stupid." And like I was like, "What do you mean they're stupid?" And he's like, "They're stupid because they are black."
Wow.
And in my mind, I was like, "This sounds so weird. Like, what is that?" I didn't even register what that was. And that's something that I've carried with me a lot. We speak of teaching and educating, like so much of this is just like passed on through bad
Sure.
teachers and bad information, because some of
Yeah.
these people, what does he know? He knows what he hears and he knows what's around him. And I sometimes like to reflect on when I see somebody and I'm quick to judge them and I'm quick to say something. I'm like, well, they're a product of their environment, and so, yes, they had to make a choice at a certain point, but their lifetime of learning was this.
Yeah.
And that's really sad. But the only way through it is to educate the next workforce. So
Yeah.
sorry, I don't want to be
No,
on a
that
soapbox or
but
anything, but
no, well, I mean, I think, look, my belief is that we all are prejudice biased, even as far as
yep.
racist. I mean, I grew up in Hershey, Pennsylvania. It was Chocolatown, USA, and the whitest
Yeah.
on earth. So the diversity was lacking, and I think, I remember I told this story in my book. I was in Philadelphia. I went to grad school there, and I was walking. It was probably like 7, 8 o'clock at night. And I was in a
Mm,
pretty safe part of town, but I saw a group of black men coming towards me, or young men, and
yeah.
my instinct was, "That's not safe."
Hmm, yeah.
And I remember feeling that moment of, "Why am I assuming that?"
Yeah.
Because I'm in that because it was unfamiliar and it was not what I was used to, but it was that prejudice and bias. Now, like your little 6-year-old self, I like to think I had enough awareness that I was aware and recognized how,
hmm
I'm sorting and I'm filtering, and the brain does that automatically, and I wanna change that narrative because it's not fair. It wasn't based on their actions, it wasn't based on anything other than
Yes.
color. And
Yeah.
so that really, I think, is so important. I think it's, important you brought it up, that we can do better when we really admit that that's just part of
Exactly.
how the brain sorts and what we're taught and what we have to
Yeah.
relearn.
And self-reflection. Sometimes you have to admit you're a narcissist for you to get better, right? The first step is admitting that
First
you have these, pain points. So, anyways, coming back to your point.
Yeah.
So I'm in a very interesting role at InfoPro Learning, and it's one that I absolutely love. I've worked for my boss for 15 years,
Wow.
and I have rid his coattails all the way to the top. Absolutely. He became the guy who hired me as a manager, ended up becoming the CEO, and he's just kind of been like, hey, come with me. Let's do these fun things together. And so I've really done a whole number of things, from consulting, a lot of learning consulting work early on, just trying to understand what is it that this client or this project is really doing, right? Designing onboarding programs for call centers, sales training programs, leadership programs, whatever it is. But my passion was always in more of a product role, like a
Okay.
marketing role, to say, okay, let's take all these challenges, let's take all these things that we're hearing, and let's create something that's a little bit more structured so that we can give this product out to people to help solve those common challenges.
Okay.
So a
So they
lot
can
of my
scale it, so it's more
yeah,
scalable.
so a lot of my work early was really, I think, more at like it was less like an individual level and more of like an org design,
Okay.
or consulting level. But then, as I got into leadership myself and my teams grew, obviously, I was like implementing the things that I was designing
Yeah.
for, and had a brand new appreciation for things like, tell them and tell them and tell them again
Yeah.
and tell them again. and
Yeah.
and it actually, what I've realized is it has made, I feel like it's given me a superpower as a leader, coming from a background of L&D, because you understand why people are the way that they are.
Mm.
And it's like that foundational level, right? If you don't know 1 + 1 = 2, I can give you a calculator, but you're not going to be that great at math. You're going to be as great as your calculator
Yeah.
is. I feel like me having an understanding of how people learn, what are their biases when they come into work, and how do you remove some of those, has really enabled me to kind of practice a lot of those things, even in really small, emails to people.
It makes it, well, you've used the word understanding multiple times, so that's clearly an approach you take, whether it was, again, it sounds like it started very early, but understanding the needs of the client, the needs of your team, where their starting points are, their motivations. This is a lot of the key to leadership, isn't it? Just seeking to understand.
I absolutely, and that's why I was so aligned with your message about listening. Is I just feel that it's such a overlooked skill in
Yeah.
leadership, and I don't mean like, yeah, you can stop and just listen, but like, are you genuinely hearing what other people are saying? It was so fascinating. Right before this podcast, I was listening to a podcast with Conan O'Brien and Jason and Travis Kelce, who are football players. And then you've got obviously Conan O'Brien, who's hosting the Emmys this weekend, but or Oscars. And he said that the number one advice that he could give to anybody interviewing is to just be a good listener.
Yeah.
Because if you're not actively listening, you can't actively participate in the conversation. You're just kind of take them down those steps that they want to go. And I just thought, wow, like what another great example of just all these different pieces, not just in this world, but in this world. It is like such a universal skill.
Yeah, and I so appreciate that. And it also, not you specifically, but it also is mind-boggling to me because we know it's important and we talk about it. But if I said define it, most people don't have a common definition or way of doing it. And so that's obviously the what I call the biggest gap is that we have this thing that we associate as really the most critical thing we can do in most situations that we haven't put any real method behind that's consistent for people to be able to do it. So,
What
that's
is the definition?
well, I
Or in
believe,
your mind? Yeah.
yeah. So I think there's two things. There's the definition and then there's the how. Okay. So
Okay.
most people think about hearing as a sense, just taking in the words and this, and
Yeah, that's
that
true.
doesn't get us to the meaning. So I think
Mm.
listening's about getting to the meaning and to the understanding. The goal is to understand. So and as a goal-oriented person as well, that's the goal of listening. And so it's not just a passive act, whether you're doing an interview as Conan O'Brien or you're doing that as a
Right.
leader, it's getting to that understanding. And the how is, I think we just have a checklist of behaviors that are, let's nod, make eye contact, stay quiet, and just hope that that gets us to the,
Mhm.
and I've told this story before, but when I was in college, I was an athlete as well, but I wasn't the fastest, so I
Mm.
wasn't real quick. And one summer I went out with a friend of mine who was on the track team, and I don't know what I was thinking because you don't want to go sprinting with when you're not
No.
the fastest. Like
No.
judgment was, but
Yeah.
it was one of the days that it actually changed my athletic career because one
Okay.
night we set up on the track on the field, I mean the football field. She said we're going to do 25-yard sprints. And I still remember her hamstrings were just the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen.
Oh,
Like just
wow.
her legs were incredible. And so we set up and she says 1, 2, 3, go, and we take off. And she was at the 25 and I had taken like 3 steps. And she turned and said, "You don't know how to run." And I
Yeah.
said, "What? I know how to run." She said, "No, you've been running, but you don't know how to run.
Mm.
Let me
So
show
true.
you." And then she showed me all these nuanced things, and lo and behold, when she taught me how, I wasn't the fastest, but I was exponentially quicker and faster than I was before she showed me once I practiced it. So this is what I love about whether it's listening or any aspect of learning and development. When you show someone how, it can change the game just tremendously. I was a field hockey player, that was my sport of choice, and I just continued to accelerate because of her her ability to help me
Mm.
accelerate physically. So that's the gap I think that's missing so much, and that's what's missing in listening is that we're not showing how.
I just don't think you would know more than I would, but I just don't see it as like a skill that people put value in. I mean, I don't mean to any disrespect. I just mean when I'm
No, I
hearing
you're
people
speaking my
when I
language.
when I'm hearing people talk and by the nature of kind of my work, I interview
Yeah,
a lot of learning leaders and things like that. It is really like how do you lead, which is all I think a lot of it in their minds or is like you have to be doing something. You
yeah,
have to be doing something.
yeah.
And that's not always like the case. Like so much of leadership is deciding what not to do and what actions not to take.
Talk
And
more
so
about that. I think that's it's our anxiety of
yeah.
wanting to have to make our time count rather than so tell for the listener, like that's a very practical takeaway that if we again, let's show them how, because that's easier said
Yeah.
than done sometimes.
Yeah. So I think and this is a huge problem today. And I'm a huge user of this problem has been exacerbated by AI, and this has been exacerbated by the volatility of our world. so many people are being asked, what are you going to do about this? What are you
Mm,
going to do about that? What are you going to do about this? And I think the first instinct of a lot of people is like, oh, I'll just go do it. Like,
uh,
I'll go do AI, I'll go do whatever. And I think a lot of times it's not always the right path for you, but it's a harder choice. Like, it's a harder choice to sit back and do nothing. It's a harder choice to say,
yeah,
you know, we had our strategy. And you agree with me, Mrs. CEO. Last month, when we created the strategy, we had said that we're going to run this program for the next 4 months. Did you
yeah,
agree? Yes, we did. I think that right now, maybe we're making a decision based off of one data point and we're a little bit flustered. But when we sat down and we really were doing our hard thinking hats, we
yeah.
decided this was the best long-term strategy. And it's hard when things don't work out immediately. And so I feel like it is the harder path to do nothing because it makes you look lazy. It makes you look like you're not responding. You're definitely betting on yourself and betting on your strategy. But a lot of times that's the right way. So sometimes I feel like the art of doing nothing is just that. But then right now, like there's just such I feel like you almost have to be specific about what you don't want to do now that AI is in the picture because you can literally do anything.
Yeah.
The CEO of Under Armour, so Under Armour is a smaller, right, apparel company. Nike is the giant,
Yeah.
100 times bigger. And he said this like 10 years ago. So it was the margin was even bigger. And he said, our approach to athlete strategy is when we go and endorse an athlete, at Under Armour, we can sign anybody, but we cannot sign everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nike can sign anybody and everybody.
Yeah.
So we have to make the conscious choice. Yes, we can get Tiger Woods, but if we get Tiger Woods, we literally can't get anybody
Yeah,
else.
right. You're picking,
And
yeah.
and that's so much harder than just saying yes to everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so I think this is so important because it I think about all the ways we just more is better and we just think
Hmm.
more is better, right? More answers, more solutions, faster, but we are running at that pace. So I call this slowing down to speed up. If we don't slow down, then it really can cost us in the long run. So how did you learn that?
I think I am inherently lazy. I I do. I think that I am. I
All
have
right,
to
I'll buy
admit,
that.
I think I'm inherently lazy. So my natural instinct is like that just sounds like busy work. Like it sounds like
Mm,
it just sounds like we're doing something to try to do something.
okay.
And if you can't convince me that that's much better, I'm going to take the path of least resistance, which is the site I've already developed or the program that's already implemented or whatever. So I think part of it is an inherent laziness. The other thing that
Well, let
I
me
have
just
been
say what that leads
yeah.
to before you go on, because it's look, I'm a technician. I taught myself how to play pitch softball. Nobody ever
Okay.
showed me, is that maybe your inherent laziness leads you to the right questions. And here's the question, tell me
Mhm.
more. Does that
Yeah.
really make sense? Like that's there like just to bridge that create the
Yeah.
bridge between what you're saying and what you're actually doing is that if we already have something in place, something new may not be better. So help me understand why that would be better is what I hear you saying.
Yeah, yeah, and that is the smarter way to say the stupid thing that I
No,
said.
no, it wasn't stupid at
So
all. I just
yeah.
but under the guise of I'm gonna show you how to run is what
Yeah.
I mean is that this is what happens in listening. Just the people that say you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, listen more. Well, that doesn't do it for me. Because people are some people are lazy, some people aren't, whatever, but you're plugging into something different.
Yeah, and the other component that I have realized is that I am very, calm under
Mhm.
pressure. There's nothing that phases me, and it is infuriating to my people around me.
Yeah.
Especially my wife. Oh my god, she wants me to just blow my top. I think and sometimes I think she's just doing it just to kick the hornet's nest to
Yeah.
see
What
what
will
can
it
she
take?
actually get away with before I actually say something. I have had extreme highs in my life and really lows, and I don't think I want to chase either one of those, to be quite honest. And so I have been very comfortable never being above a 7 of happiness and never being below a 4 of sadness. And
A mediocre life.
I love. I love that life. And I'm
Yeah.
like, don't make me, because I see my wife. She is the happiest person you'll ever, when there is a rainbow, you
Yeah.
cannot imagine how happy my wife is, but you cannot also imagine how sad she is
When she feels
over
it.
whatever it is, like, and I can't stand that. I could not live that way. Like I could not be that sad or that happy. I feel like too
Well,
much
as a
for me.
narcissist, Nolan, of
Yeah,
course not.
yeah. And so I think that a lot of times, and I thought about, I had a class I took, my favorite class ever in college, had nothing to do with my major.
Yeah.
It was conflict resolution.
Mm.
And so much in that, I was already a pretty calm guy, but in that, it talks just so much I realized so much of it was about just like letting the other person burn themselves out
Yeah.
and talk through it and just let them come to the conclusion that they want to. Before, like, you first need to really understand what is going on before you can even start kind of going into it. But the more emotion that you bring to it, the worse you're going to be, because you're bringing, to come all the way back, you're bringing bias into this
Yeah.
conversation now.
Yeah.
And so whenever somebody is telling me or talking to me, or if we're in really tough times, I feel like I'm able to take an emotion out of the decision-making equation and just say, like, listen, very logically thinking, I don't know if this is the right answer. And I think that helps me kind of knee-jerk into certain things.
Well, I'm gonna summarize what I think I hear.
Yeah.
I think this is an emotional intelligence skill that you're describing, where you can have enough awareness of what emotions they're feeling, you're feeling, and decide what you're going to respond to rather than simply reacting to something. Even the awareness that I don't like those extreme highs and lows, I'd rather live in the midpoint, is an emotional intelligence skill, all of which we're capable of, but it takes a lot of practice.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not a plug. I just so brand Christine didn't invite me on here to sell anything, but I think so much of it is like back to listening. When my wife and I mean, I feel like I can keep using that example, but you could use honestly any
Well, I
example.
think
Like
you like her, which is very
I just
refreshing. He
I
likes
just
your
feel
wife too. We'll bring her on next.
I feel like sometimes people just like if you're listening to somebody, and I think the reason I bring up my wife is because we're probably polar opposites. Like,
Mm.
I am born in April, I am an Aries, she is in March, and she is a Pisces. And for those that know, like that, we are like, it's fire and water,
Is
and
that
it
what that
is.
is? Okay, I don't
Yeah,
know.
so
Okay.
she's a dreamer, she's a unicorn,
Mm.
she's a mermaid. I'm a stubborn ass,
Yeah.
and I think your natural instinct is when you see somebody that's different than you stop listening. You're nodding your head like you're saying, oh, whatever, but in your mind you're just thinking, this person is so stupid. I cannot believe they think this way. I'm not willing to take anything they say
Yeah.
as fact because they're such a stupid person. But the like, their perspective is as good as your perspective in many things. Like, there's not a lot of things in this world that are so black and white. And it took me a really long time to understand that there's people that think differently about the world than I do,
Yeah.
right? Like, it took me to really appreciate that line of thinking isn't worse than my line of thinking. But if you're not listening for that, if you're not, like, willing to hear it and absorb it and comprehend it, and you're just looking to react or to say something back or to respond,
Yeah.
you never truly get that perspective.
Well, that is perspective taking. It really I think my take is that we're so focused on agreement that we're missing the understanding. That is just so much
Yeah,
of it is in a meeting is, do we agree, not do we understand? And if
yeah,
we understood, we don't have then we'll get to agreement, because that's the first step in conflict resolution is, and what great negotiators do is they understand what the needs, wants, and desires are in order to get to an agreement. So,
yeah,
but again, you've used and this is like a Hallmark card to me. You've used the word understanding quite a bit, and perspective taking is is super important in leadership. But again, we're not taught this. We're really not taught this on a regular
So
basis.
how do you like, what are the fundamentals of listening? Are there fundamentals of listening? I don't like, is there like a method, a model,
Yeah.
an acronym that sounds really cool
Yeah.
or something like that?
Well, and I love that that as a podcast host yourself, that this is a dual interview. I love it, Nolan. This is amazing that you're modeling everything I appreciate. So I think what most people know about is active listening. That's what
Yeah,
we know.
I've heard that. I've definitely heard that.
I mean, even when I talk about what's called the listening path, people hear active listening. Now, I'm not against active listening at all.
Mm,
Here's what I'm against is that it's turned into a checklist. You just said it. We nod, we make
yeah.
eye contact. Now we
Hmm.
put our phones away to be super polite, right?
Yeah.
And so it's become performative. And here's why I believe it's become performative. We're told, not taught. And even people that have been taught active listening, it is incredibly complicated. This
Hmm.
was a methodology created for therapeutic settings, and as a former therapist, that it's deep. There's 11 things you're
Hmm.
supposed to do to actively listen. So it's too complicated. Yeah, right. Who's going to do that?
I can't imagine two things.
Right. So what I've done and what we've done is really to build tools instead of these things, like just withhold judgment and remain quiet and ask good questions. It needs to be a process that's simple and repeatable and replicable.
Mm,
So there's tools instead of these behaviors. And then the tools, I wouldn't, again, I'm not the most mechanically inclined person, so the analogy is meant with the right intent. But I wouldn't try to build a house without tools.
yeah.
I wouldn't go without a hammer, a saw, those things.
Mm-hmm.
And in listening, that's what we need. We need tools to help us understand. And so there's some simple ways that these can be applied that are taught to elementary schools to business leaders. So, and one of them is really, what questions should you ask? And we
Mm.
call that the compass. Yeah.
Like specifically, these are the 10 best questions in the world, or like more types of things?
Six
Okay.
questions.
Okay.
Take me back to the beginning. Tell me more. How did that make you feel? It sounds like you
Oh,
felt. Then what happened? And ready for this?
yeah. I had the boss, the guy who's the CEO of our company now. He said the best response if somebody says something to you like, because I started off actually in telesales, like
You
200
did?
calls, 200 calls a day
Wow. You earned your
kind of thing, right?
wow.
And he said, if somebody ever mentions pricing and like says this, and they say like, oh, is there a discount? He goes, all I want you to do, I either want you to do one of two things. I want you to not respond and let them say something, or I want you to say discount and then be silent and let
Yeah.
them come back. There is so much to just
Not
that.
to letting that
Yeah.
happen. Yes. That's
Yeah.
very, especially with objections. Yeah. Yeah.
And what's interesting about I've been thinking about something now. I feel like this is going to sound in a certain way. I've never thought about the skill of listening until now. I've been told I'm a good listener and all these other things, but I haven't really thought of it as a skill I developed or am, always developing, whatever it should be. And I feel like when I traditionally have thought of skills, it's like it's almost a binary thing, like you have
Yeah.
it or you don't have it, right? And like
Yeah.
if you just do this, you can listen. But I feel like there must be, even within that skill, just like every skill, a big range of great and not as great. Now, if you do the fundamentals, like you said, there's between the track star and Christine, who knows how to run a little bit faster,
Absolutely.
because so much of what I feel like I've been hearing you say is like the ability to connect the dots between this person's statement and that person's statement and kind of their life. And I just feel like sometimes people don't have that skill, that like thinking on your feet. And I wonder, like, does that does that impact their ability to be a better listener? Is there maybe inability, or not even inability, but lack of fast neurons to kind
Yeah.
of try to
Yeah.
connect
Yeah.
those dots?
Well, I think so. Let's talk about that in terms of empathy.
Okay.
Because I think this, first of all, why I'm going to diagnose you beyond where we've already started, okay, is that part of why you're a good listener is because you're intensely curious and seeking to understand. Even as we're talking now, and I'll point this out just for the listener because you don't have the answer, but you're churning on, I want to make sense out of this.
Yeah,
And so that in and
absolutely.
of itself, that it's not just a curiosity of I want to know
Mm,
more, it's a curiosity of I want to understand more.
okay.
And that's part of how we get to understanding human or a process or a
Mm,
business problem or whether you're solving something in chemistry or you're solving something in the human space.
mm,
So that's what we're come into the situation with. I don't think we need to be inherently curious to learn how to be to be better at seeking to understand if we have the
mhm,
right tools. But will someone like you go a little further than someone who doesn't have that?
mhm,
Probably, just because you're a little more wired towards that. But I
right.
listening builds empathy and understanding, not the other way around. We're expecting people to go into the situation being that way rather than this if they learn how to listen, it'll be the result, is
Yeah,
to become
and
more curious and
I just
understand.
jumped across the table and tackled Christine. That's what that microphone
Right as I
was. For
hit
those that aren't watching, yeah, that was me jumping over the
it's
table
me.
and tackling
Yeah.
Christine. So
So,
don't
yeah.
blame her for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it, I as I was hearing you talk and diagnose me, um,
You're very open to it.
a couple different times you've said this word empathy, and I feel like I'm trying to make this cog connect, and as you said, I'm kind of trying to do it on the fly because I have a very bad my whole life. I didn't even know what empathy was. Is the reality? I didn't know it was a thing, and then I found out it was a thing, and then I realized I didn't have that thing. But then I feel like he had a new revelation of I don't know if it's that I don't have empathy or it's that I truly don't have emotion like they have,
Yeah.
which I guess is a part of empathy, but like it's not coming from a perspective of I don't care. It's coming from a perspective of I have never felt
Yeah.
a 1 on the sadness spectrum or a 10 on the happy. So I genuinely cannot even begin to think about that. But I've realized that if I do listen and I remind myself that I'm not the best at that, I can actually start picking up on cues and be like, "Oh, this is my moment. I need to be like this is my empathy moment. Go do it." But I feel like you've said it twice now. Those things have to be like so close together of like your ability to listen and your ability to express empathy.
Yeah, yes, and I don't think everybody you have to feel to the extent somebody else feels to appreciate
Yes.
the experience that they're having. I think it's a tall order. I no matter how empathetic you are, until you've experienced something, it's really hard to put yourself in someone else's shoes, but you can appreciate and go on that ride with them. It's if you
Mhm.
learn how to listen in a way that brings the experience to you and that it's shared rather than, oh, you just have to know what that feels like. That's a
Yeah.
tall order because we're not all neurologically wired the same way. And like you said, your wife is much more sensitive, if you
Yes.
will. And not that you're insensitive, but your sensitivity level is different. Yet you're like I said, you're looking to understand on a very deep level. And that seems to me that it goes to both things and to people, not just one or the other. I mean, if you're having the empathy of a racism at 6, I think you have a little more empathy than you're probably giving yourself credit for, or you're just noticing things that other people aren't noticing.
Yeah, yeah, and or, I think I maybe noticed, like, I didn't have a word for what it was,
Yeah.
maybe, right? Because it wasn't part of my ecosystem of, 4 boys and,
But you're bringing up
machismo and stuff,
such
but
an
I don't know.
important thing that I've heard people say, like, they fear that they don't have enough empathy. They
Mhm.
can't relate to that situation. And I say, do you watch a movie that's intensely emotional and compelling, and do you get transfixed and transformed into that experience? Can it draw you in? And usually the answer is yes. And so if you're able to help someone tell their experience or story in a way that draws you in, you're inherently going to become more interested and empathetic just because you know how to do that.
Yeah, I have to tell you that in these reality shows, like, you name it, Extreme Makeover House Edition, Biggest Loser, Lego Masters, Master Chef. whatever it is, I am guaranteed to cry at least a third of the episodes.
Yeah.
And my wife looks at me. She's like, I've seen you cry like 10 times. Why is it always like, outside of these shows? She's like, what is wrong with you? I'm like, I don't know what it is.
You like
There's something about those shows. It must be. There's something. And I told her, I was like, you know what it is? Like, what makes me tear up is pride. Like my son competed. This is embarrassing. My son competed. It's not embarrassing. I'm very proud of my son for competing in the Alaska State Fair hot dog eating competition.
Oh, wow. How old is he?
Last year, 10.
Wow, that's
yes. And he goes down there and there's like 30 people. And it's like kids and, adults, everybody. And it's at the state fair and he finishes whatever. And I'm tearing up. Like I'm not like sobbing, but my wife's like, what's wrong? And I'm like, I guess I'm just proud. I don't know. Like any sense of pride is what gets me. Everything else, like sadness, happiness. I'm like, yeah, okay, like cool. But it's something about that.
That
you could probably diagnose it because you have the background.
It tracks because of where you began and what you noticed as a kid is how people come along and where the transformation is and how you help them. Look, bless his heart for doing a hot dog eating. By the way, how many did he eat?
So he ate 3. It was like 3 minutes or 2 minutes.
Oh, that's
and the winner was 4. So it wasn't like it was a very truncated timeline. It wasn't like a Nathan's where you get 5 minutes. It was like or 15 minutes.
That's still pretty good. Is he inspired to go back? Is he going to do it again?
I don't know. I think when they called for it, I don't think they knew. I don't think he knew he was going to be. I think he was going to thought, oh, I'll go off into a room, eat some hot dogs, and they'll because he's never seen a hot dog eating competition. He just said, yeah, I'll do it. And I don't eat beef or pork. And so like as much as I wanted to go down, I was like, this is your journey. And that's so unlike him. I have 2 kids. One is very like just, for his birthday, he goes, I want 2 friends over and I just want to have a sleepover. My other son wants to have every single person in the world come to his party. He loves being in the center of attention. And so for him, and I think that's what was made it emotional for him, that's not him. That's absolutely not him. And I if he would have said, hey, I'm not really I thought I was going to do this, I would have been completely fine with him and appreciative that he could recognize that in himself. But to recognize it and then still do it was cool.
And that's courage, right?
Yeah.
What's the John Wayne quote, like the saddle up, it's just it's about being afraid and saddling up anyway. Right?
Yes.
That's So let's, before we have to close, this is fun. This is really, you're fun. You're really fun. Is what in the learning and development space, what should leaders be thinking about? What's top of mind? What do you give us your best, advice right now?
Well, I mean, you've opened up my eyes to the importance of listening. So I absolutely would say, and I feel like there's simple things that you could do, like go to Christine's website. I think it's a listeningpath.com.
Yeah, thank you.
So it is listeningpath.com. So definitely do that. I think it's where, or you just listening to this is probably going to open up your eyes. So I think that's definitely important. I want to point that out because a lot of what we're getting asked to do today in terms of leadership and just general org development, I think there's a lot of it connected to just meeting people where they are because it's so like there's just no. The person is the constant. Everything else around you is going to change, but the person is the constant. They're not going to change nearly as much as the economy. And so if you can connect better, and a good way to connect is listening. So that's, I do want to, you've opened my eyes up to that. What I'm hearing broadly though, you are really under the gun to have an AI strategy today. I have unfortunately heard from, in the last 2 months, 5 different vice presidents or CLOs who have been let go because they weren't able to adopt an AI strategy, or they weren't able to dictate what their strategy was going to be. A very shameless plug. Because of that, I said, we have to find some way to give an AI strategy within a month, like a detailed AI strategy within a month. So if that's something you are like, oh, I just need something, I was like, listen, let's call a spade a spade. If all you want to do is get that and you have no intention of actually executing it, you just need to present it.
Sure.
We're cool with that. Like, we'll do that for you. We hope that you would want to actually implement. But so that's one. I think you have to have a defined AI strategy.
Well,
if
that's
you
not
don't,
going to be everybody's technical prowess. So
of course,
that's an amazing resource to say, we can help you put
Yeah.
that together and be able to have a
And it's
roadmap.
not another tool, because I think so much help these days comes in the form of another tool.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah.
like you buy this tool, it's a help. It's like, no, it's not really helping me.
Yeah,
So that's one thing I do feel there's tremendous pressure on. Um, I also think there's a big shift happening right now in this structure of how you want to design the work that gets done. Um, IT went through this like years ago. They're going through another transformation again. 10 years ago, it was very common that most companies would outsource easily 60, 70% of their IT was being done to some
yeah,
company. L&D has been really slow to do that. But recently, I am seeing more organizations recognize if this work isn't strategic to me, if this
yeah,
is not like if this is building a widget and that widget doesn't really need a ton of this, I am better off just outsourcing that because I can get it done less expensive. I can
yeah,
hold them to task more than I can hold an employee to task. I can pivot on demand. So I think that's the other thing that a lot of organizations, and I think actually a lot of that centers around just this idea of like a flexibility,
yeah,
because the plans are changing so quickly and people are looking to bring in agility into their organization.
yeah,
And I mean, I feel like one of the harder ways to bring agility is to hire bench of
yeah,
full-time resources. It's hard to be agile in that environment. And so they're starting to look at more light switches that they can turn
yeah.
on when they need it and turn off when they don't need it, which I think makes sense. And the third thing is that I'm seeing everybody talk, like those first two, I think are kind of a little bit more like project. They're strategic, but it's like kind of you've done it,
Well,
you
they're
haven't done it.
also probably related,
Yeah,
right? The AI.
exactly.
Okay.
And then the third one is there's a huge drive to say focus more on business. More of your team needs to be a business partner, right? I'm
Mhm.
starting to see more and more organizations adopt LBPs as the acronym. That acronym didn't exist 5 years. Learning business partners.
Yeah.
Learning business partners are running rampant in organizations, and I don't mean that as a bad thing.
Sure.
Their job is to try to say, let's work with these businesses, especially if you have a decentralized learning environment or a centralized learning environment. Sorry, if you have a centralized learning environment, these are the people to go off into those units and understand the business problem, but they have enough learning context to be able to put it in to be that what is it called, like the Rosetta Stone, right, to like
Yeah.
match up what they're saying to what
Yeah.
you're hearing and build that common language. So
Rather than order
um
take, right? And rather than say we
yeah,
provide, but we're gonna drive value this way. Yeah.
because I think that culture of order taking happened when they didn't speak your language and you didn't speak theirs, and there
Sure.
was no way to bridge that gap. If you're not lucky enough to have a head count or budget for this learning business partner, I've heard a lot of people do some amazing things with AI to kind of get you there.
Yeah.
But that's a whole nother topic. So there are ways to kind of overcome that without just going out and hiring a very expensive learning business partner. But I think that thread is one that I think we're going to see pushed a lot more now is how are we connecting that dot between what the business needs and what the learning needs.
So I heard 4. Listen, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Appreciate
For
that.
yes.
Look at yeah, you have to have a strategy for AI. And
Yep.
if you don't have one and you need at as a
Just something.
shameless plug,
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
started there. That's what you're here to help with,
Yeah.
right? Look at IT as a resource that you're managing, so that may not need to be internal.
Yeah.
And most importantly, change the paradigm in how you're looking at learning and development inside your organization, and think about how you could serve the business units really as a strategic partner rather than just as a provider of things and offer a menu of offerings, right?
Yes.
That may do the same thing, but unless you bridge that gap for people, it's the business unit leaders, it's not going to be as effective.
Yep. Absolutely.
Brilliant advice. Delightful. Tell
Thank
your
you.
wife I want to meet her.
Okay, I will.
She's driven you to fishing. She's getting you to
Yeah.
appreciate things, and so,
Oh, no
it
doubt about it.
well, it's just a delight to meet you, Nolan. Thank you so much for being here. How can people find you?
LinkedIn is the best. I think it's linkedin.com/Nolan Hout. Really easy to find. So message me on LinkedIn. I'm really active there. I post a lot of
Yeah,
just thoughts and papers and videos and stuff. So best place.
great, and, lots of tips and tricks, and check out
Yes.
your and tell us the new name of your podcast again so everybody can find it.
It's the talent equation.
Yeah,
It's on Spotify, YouTube, all those places.
Delightful. Well, thank you. And thank you, everyone,
Yeah.
for joining us today on Shine a Light. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. And we'll see you next time.